Welcome to Journaling with Nature, the podcast for those who want to turn curiosity into wonder, a pencil sketch into a rabbit hole of discovery, a moment of stillness into a life full of joy. I'm your host, Bethan Burton. Let's open the pages of our nature journals and explore this world together. Hello, this is episode 114. Today, I'm chatting with artist and illustrator Valentina Arros. Valentina comes from Chile, but now she's living in Germany. With her work, she hopes to make change in the hearts and minds of others, and that this will, in turn, lead to people living more lightly on the earth. In our conversation, we spoke about Valentina's thesis, looking at signage and how to make it most effectively portray a message, finding beauty in small details, sketchnoting as a tool for learning, and the effectiveness of all things visual in sharing information and a conservation message. Let's listen. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm really excited to get to know you and to know more about your story. So thank you for being here.
Thank you very much for the invitation. I'm really, really excited of this conversation.
So as someone who knows this podcast and knows me, you'll know that my first question is about your early nature experiences. And I'd love to hear some stories about nature in your childhood. Did you have nature close to you when you were young?
Yes, I'm from Chile, and I was born in Santiago. That's the capital city of Chile. And there we had a house. We have a garden. So I always loved to go to the garden and gardening, and there were some birds around or see some animals. In Chile, there are a lot of cats also like around, so I was always having contact with cats. And my grandparents had a house in the beach, so all the vacations time we were going to the beach. And I remember just also being in contact. We were doing hiking around, etc. And I will say like my main topic that I like, it's animals. So I was always looking for animals and seeing them, etc. And I remember, I think that was one of the most important experiences because I was very young and I was walking in a place and I remember I saw a fox, and the fox was doing some sounds. He was screaming basically. But he didn't realize I was there. But at some point he saw me, so he tried to run away. And I repeated the same sound he was doing. And then the fox stopped, and he turned to me, and he sat down to look at me. And then I repeated the same sound like 2-3 times. And he was like looking at me. It was not super close, but I knew he was looking at me. And then he did the same sound again. So we had like a conversation. It was super nice. And he was like waiting, I was doing it, and then he was doing it, and it was some time, and then he just went. But after that, I thought, okay, it's so nice that to have this communication or in connection with an animal. I was so young, and it was super nice, like to have that interaction. So it's something that it's in my mind, like how you connect sometime with some other species, and I think it was just a nice experience. Yeah,
absolutely. I love that story. What a moving moment that must have been to have probably the adrenaline from being close to the animal, and then this wild sound, and then this moment of connection. It's no wonder it stayed in your mind and inside you.
Absolutely, yeah. Because it's like he recognized that you're doing something similar. Like we don't know what the other is saying, but at some point you feel that there is. And he was like, he sat down to see me. So it's you can have this interaction also with a fox. That it's not like an animal easy to see. At least in Chile, you don't see foxes all the time. So it's not like a sheep that sometimes I can also try to talk to the sheep and it works, but it was a fox. It's like more wildlife, so it was nice. Yeah.
What an amazing story. And so your life and career have led you to Germany and led you to working towards improving the state of our environment. And I'd love to hear the next steps. What happened after you grew up and you were ready to choose a career. How did the steps of your path lead you to where you are now?
Mm-hmm. So there also happened many things in between, as I had to change in different directions. But I studied public administration and political science. I did a master's there, and also on the same topic. And I worked in the public sector for 6-7 years in Chile, which was completely different to what I'm doing now. Although there are some things that I did there that are connected, some reflections to what I'm doing now. Maybe then I'll talk about those things, because there are some important things that sometimes you realize, okay, I'm doing something completely different, but there are some learnings that you have that you keep with you for the rest of your life. So that's some things that are still there. But at some point during all of this process, usually I think that when I do things, I do with a lot of like passion, or I'm really connected with the things that I'm doing. I thought, okay, I really like what I was doing. I was working it was more like social innovation. So I was also doing things for people and everything, but something was not fulfilling me. And I was thinking, if I'm doing something, I really want to do something that I feel something with it. So I started thinking what I would like to do. And I remember like doing a list of things that I would like to, maybe to see what's my direction. But at some point I thought, okay, it's not a rational decision that I have to take. It's more like emotional. Yeah. So when I was like reading my list, I thought, okay, what are the topics that when I'm reading this, I feel something, like it's something that I can describe. And all the environmental topics were the area that I felt, okay, I feel something here. I can't say what exactly, but that's my topic. I need to go in that direction. So I said, okay, I'm going to environmental issues. At that time was very general, like sustainability, environment, something in that area. And then we had this was in 2018, and there was the COP25 in Chile. So because of where I was working, we had the chance to work for the COP25. And I was doing a project for connecting people with environment. And it was a really nice project for being more like in the political area related with sustainability, environment, etc. And then because of that, I also had, when I finished my work there and I came here, but I also continued working for projects with the Ministry of Environment in Chile, so connected with more like the public sector political area. But yeah, when I decided, okay, I'm going for sustainability, for environment, there were like different things that happened, because I thought, okay, that's my purpose. So for one side, I want to think what's my direction more like professionally, but also my personal life, how I connect also my life in that direction. Because I think, how can I be consistent with the things I'm doing? So all my life started moving for more like sustainable lifestyle. How can I go in that direction? And thinking what's the best ways of doing things. And also I decided, okay, if I want to do something in this area, I'm not sure what exactly. So I decided to go to Germany, because I wanted to go out of what I'm seeing here, like what's happening outside. Like I want to discover more. So I came here with my husband. So we both quit our jobs. We both traveled here for this traveling. So I was 1 year around. We were like traveling in Germany, and I was writing some institutes of people or companies, like to know what is happening in environmental things here. And I was super surprised that people were super open, and I met many people like in Germany, and they were just sharing like their projects and the things they were doing. There was no like a specific purpose on the conversation, just talking about it.
Did you speak German already?
No, not. Wow. I mean, now I more or less speak German, but at that point it was just in English, and it worked well.
Yeah.
And then I thought, okay, I know about like public sector and a bit about connection with people, citizens, etc., but I don't know nothing about science. And if I want to go in the direction, I would like to know a bit more. So I decided to study. And I started a master's that it's good connected like nature and social area. So I'm doing that master. So I came to Munich, and now I'm in Munich. And that's where like the things started like connecting little by little. And at that time, I was thinking, because I was learning a lot by myself, how can I move for a more sustainable lifestyle? And also I was learning for my master's. And I also thought, I feel that I'm learning, but I'm keeping the information for myself. And that makes no sense for me, because what I want is a change, like in general. So how can I communicate this or share this with someone? And I was like researching what I can do, etc. And then I thought maybe social media, it's an option. At that time, I was not using social media. So I thought, okay, I will open an Instagram account or something. And then the second question was, how can I do it? And I was thinking that different options to do it, but because I have been connected with like visual area in my life. My parents are painters, and then when I was working, I worked with a lot of designers. So I was always seeing what they were doing. Like it was not my job, but I was seeing their work and asking them questions and everything. Because I always have had like this interest for like visual things, not doing anything about it, but just the interest. So I thought maybe I can try, see what happens. So I thought maybe also like visual means is a good way for communicating something in a very simple and accessible way.
Absolutely.
So I started doing some doodles, like I'm not talking about ways or things like that I was learning, like doing some general things. So that was my connection, like connecting sustainability with art or visual things. And I also, at the same time, my master's, I had to choose some topics because we have like different areas that we can decide. And I did the same that I did for deciding an environment. I thought, okay, I'm just going to take the topics that I feel something, like I can't describe what happens, but it's something there. And then I choose all like the wildlife areas and forestry areas, a bit of agriculture too. So that was also showing me that maybe that's the direction, like wildlife, something is happening there. So then I started doing more like going to animals, like moving my communication through in that direction. So I have been moving for like some more general things about sustainability to more like wildlife things or species in general, like trees too, etc. And the interesting thing, like how everything is happening, is that then I had my Instagram with some very things, like my drawings of things. And then there was a department at the university, and they contacted me and they told me that they were working in a project of green infrastructure. And they were doing like some brochures because they already did all the research, and now they had to create this thing. And they found my social media, and if I wanted to work with them for doing like the illustration and everything, I was like, really? Like, this is, and I said, yes, of course, it's so like nice. But of course, for me, I'm not an illustrator, not a designer, not anything. So I had to learn a bit more, like because I was doing some illustration, like an illustrator, but then I learned more like in Photoshop and also doing some other things. So I worked with them, and we did all the brochures with the design and the illustrations and everything, and that was really nice. And then after that, like I have had like a couple of other jobs also doing design in different aspects and some illustrations. So I kind of see that it's possible also to do like the change. That's why I think that it's something I can do in the future too. Connecting these all projects also related with nature or environmental things. So that's how the things have been moving until now.
Wow, I love that. I love that you just got this job and you thought, okay, time to learn how to do the job I've just got and learn on the spot. It's amazing. And I've seen the illustrations and the brochures you created, and it's fabulous. And I want to ask you about, I read that you're writing a thesis about signage and how this can help optimize wildlife protection. And this really brings in the idea of visual language and how powerful that can be. I'd love to hear more about that.
So, at some point, I had to choose a topic for my thesis. And I really wanted to do something connecting at least some of the things I'm doing. Because I also think that doing a thesis, you're giving so much time on that, like, I know, 6 months. And if I'm doing something, it has to be meaningful for what I'm doing and like connecting with everything. But I know that it's not like I knew it's not an easy topic to address, like more like visual area, because it's a more technical university. So how can I connect things? But anyway, I started like checking professors in the university that they were working in something connected. And then I found someone doing things in environmental communication. And I just sent him an email, like, I'm doing these things and maybe you would like to talk. And then he said, I'll be willing to supervise your thesis. And then we had like a chat.
Great.
And he said he was super interested in these topics, like all the visualization, how they communicate through that. And he's also the manager of a park in the Alps. So it was also like, okay, that's super nice. Like he's also working in the park, so he will always give me like some things that are happening in the park also. And the thing is that I was thinking what to do, and then at the end, the topic is that there are some signs in the parks that probably we all have seen that are trying to protect nature, certain species, right? So you shouldn't go in that direction, because then the bird is there or any animal is there, and you're just disturbing them. But sometimes they are not measured if it's working, like the message that you have there and everything. So basically what I'm going to be doing is to design different styles of signs. And for that, I'm doing all the research, that what's the best way of showing the information there, etc. And then to test them with people and to see what's more like
how they respond.
Exactly how they respond. And the interesting thing is that for when you're doing like a sign, you want to do different things, right? So one thing is that you first need the people going there and read it. And then when people is reading it, then they have to understand what the information is there. And then they have to accept that the information that is there. And then eventually they will change their attitudes and their behavior. But it's a whole process. I'm not covering the last steps because for a thesis it's too much. And also I thought it's more connected with what I'm doing, like the first steps. And also if the people is not reading, how I'm going to change behavior. So first people need to go and be attracted for the sign. So basically I'm doing more like the attraction. So how people perceive certain colors or certain, what they prefer in the styles or prefer illustrations or what kind of things. And also what they understand when they are reading it. So if I'm showing something, then what information they can retain afterwards. And then we can know if it's a good way of showcasing the message. And so basically, that's more or less like the idea of the thesis. And what I'm doing now, it's also understanding more like the perceptions of people in relation to being a disturbance. Because when we are showing something, and that's what we have been talking with my supervisor, is that there are not too much acceptability of me as a person being a disturbance to an animal or to any species there. So understanding this, then it's easier to think what's the message that we need to put there. And it has been super interesting reading that, because I also feel it in myself that many of the studies I'm reading is that people is not accepting that it's a disturbance. We are not saying, yeah, I'm disturbing the animal because I'm trying to be careful. But you don't know, because at the end it's the animal that is being affected. And sometimes you believe that maybe certain distance is the distance that you need to have, but sometimes it's not like that. And the interesting thing is that usually people that likes more being in nature or likes photograph, etc., sometimes they are more like a disturbance. And that's, or thinking, yeah, that's also for myself. I love to see the animals. I would like to be close to them. But I know now that, yeah, maybe I'm being a disturbance to them. So how, that doesn't mean that we can be there and we can interact with them, but how to do it in a way that we are also connecting with them and feeling from their point of view, and maybe feeling more empathy to the animals, and maybe doing things in a way that we also consider their feelings and their perceptions, because at the end, that's what we don't want to do, like to affect them. So that's like the end goal of like everything I'm doing now. And I think it was very nice because it's a topic that converge everything, in which converge everything I want to do, like all the visual things and nature. I love going hiking, so it's also connecting with hiking. So everything I like, it's in this thesis, and I think it is a super nice topic.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say that it perfectly brings together everything that you're about. And so the main thrust of your work, the main sort of motivation and meaning behind everything you do, is to inspire people to protect the natural world, and to do that through the use of visual things that inspire and motivate and captivate people. And so that's an amazing merging of all the things that you're about.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah.
So it seems to me that learning about nature is really important to you, and also that when you learn something, you want to summarize it and share it. And so on your Instagram, there's a lot of infographics that you've illustrated either digitally or on paper. And I'd love to hear you speak about this feeling or this need to capture the knowledge that you've learned and share it with other people.
Mm-hmm. So it's also like a process in which I have had to think a lot also how to take the main key points. I'm still in the process of learning like in that direction, how you synthesize and how you, when you read a lot of information, how you select the things that are the most important. Because it requires a time of thinking on that. But I think that's the point, or that's at least what I would like to do more, is trying to capture these main things but that requires like there are two things there. And that's also maybe a bit connected with what I was doing in my work before, because in my work before, like in Chile, it's another completely different topic, but we were working in public or social innovation. That's also related with design thinking in that area. But basically, and one of the main key points, because at that time, I was also doing a lot of workshops and training people and everything. And I was always saying that whatever you do in the public sector, there is a user, there is someone that you are affecting. So you always need to think in that person. Like, it doesn't matter what you're doing, but there is always someone there that is going to be connected or have an impact on what you're doing. And that's something I was always repeating there. And now it's the same here, but in a different space that you can apply it to everything. And when I'm thinking in doing an infographic or whatever, I'm not only thinking in, okay, I love doing the drawing this, but how can I know, convey a message through it, that it's connecting with the person that is behind it. And then I need to think what the person is interested on seeing. And that's also because it's connected with my thesis, because I'm also learning what are the things that are interested for people. And then I connect with that, and then it's easier for me to communicate something, because that's my main goal, no? Like the communication of something. So I need to think in the other person more than in myself. So it's the whole process of that. And also connecting with because that's why there are two things. So one is the person that I want to communicate something, but there is a main goal behind it, that it's in this case, for example, the animal or any species, that it's the one to which I want to protect, or I want to create some awareness. So there are these two goals. And for connecting with the species or the animal, then I need to connect more with understanding them and understanding them in different perspectives. I try to see how they like to live, and what are the cycles they have, or understanding more about their life and how they interact with other species. And in terms of the visual part, I need more like also the observation, and something I have been trying to do more now, because I'm also like learning more, having more techniques for painting and everything. That I like to try at least to show details, because of the animals. Like when I'm seeing bee, I try to see, okay, how many, like how is the hair of the animal, the wing or whatever, because then I can really connect with the species, because I understand how it is, like physically, and also like how it lives, but physically too, because I'm trying to make a draw of that or painting it. So it's the two connections with the people, and then with the animal, and with the animal in different perspectives.
I wonder if you're a data person, because your pieces often have data, and I wonder how data has played a role in your life and the way you understand the world.
No, I'm not very good with data, but now that you say it, I think maybe because of that's an interesting question. I think many people connect with numbers sometimes. There are different kind of people, right? There are some people that they go more for the storytelling, and then you go through a story. And there are some people that they prefer to see a number. And then if you see, okay, 80% of these are species in danger or whatever, then people is going to feel it, or, okay, I can see like the scope of the problem. So I think I tried to take like different points of view of one topic. And one of them is numbers. maybe because I'm also a bit like rational, so sometimes I would like to see some information, more like concrete information, like some numbers, but I'm not like super into numbers on everything. But I think it's a important point sometimes to have in your mind.
Yeah, that's really interesting about thinking about what's received by your audience. And your audience is obviously many different people. And so people grab onto different things. It might be a visual or a number or something that's moving the heart, I mean. And so covering all of that is important. And I mean, with the environmental crisis as it is, there's so many statistics that can punch through people's apathy, I guess, in a way. And so sometimes putting a number can be effective. You post a lot about different environmental issues like single-use plastic and chemicals in our food chain and species loss. And I'm wondering about that for you, and whether it feels to you like, whether you feel the weight of this environmental crisis, or whether you feel it's like a challenge to be solved. I'm wondering if it weighs on you, or if it just fuels you to motivate and take action, or both.
I think the thing is that when I decided to go to environmental issues, I know that it's a super huge challenge and problem that we are facing. It's so big, and it's not something that, like, I have heard many times that we talk about the future, but it's not about the future, it's now. And if I connect with different kind of animals, they are now having the issue. It's not like in the future.
Yeah.
So we are facing it now. And when I thought, okay, I want to go in that direction because I'm feeling something there, I can see that, okay, the problem is so huge and it's so complicated, and maybe the future, it's not going to be so nice because everything is going like more and more difficult. I can say, okay, I don't care. And it's super complicated. And I really think that was not my option at all. At least I want to try to do something for some maybe minimum impact, but I would like to try to do something in whatever aspect I can do something. So it's a huge challenge in general for our society, but I think we can try to do something. And because I was more in the political area before, I know there are some efforts there on doing something with the conference and everything, but after seeing like from different perspectives, I think where we can do the most is from us people. Like I know that many people say, okay, my impact, it's nothing in relation to an industry or a company. And it's true, I can't change that. But at least if we all, for example, reduce our consumption, then the company doesn't make sense anymore because no one is buying to them. So we can also create this pressure for our actions every day. So that's, I think, the point, and that's also like the area in which I can influence as a person to the problem. And that's why I think that doing things, that's also what I wanted to do things in my life, like, and also seeing that it's nothing complicated. At least in Chile, it's always like, okay, being sustainable, it's also more expensive and it's super difficult and it requires many different things. And it's not like that really. Like at the end, being sustainable means living more simple and consuming less and being more, I mean, if we reduce our consumption, then we are expending less money and we feel more light also. Like I also felt it, like having less things and you don't care about things anymore. It's just living even more connected with nature, right? Because in nature, there are not material things. It's more like living there with things that are around you. So it's much better, I feel, living in that way than in the other direction. So that's why I think that if we do things from that point of view, then we can create a change. Although the problem is huge, we are also the ones that are causing the problem, but we can also maybe solve it, like returning to nature and returning to living this balance with everything. And for that, I think it's that I feel that also kind of understanding nature, it's understanding in a way of connecting with nature. It's a way of understanding how it works, and then I can be in that. And also connected with the first story about the fox. I was not talking with the fox, but I was interacting with the fox in some way. We don't need to talk to each other and understand what the other is saying, but we can have this interaction, and then there's some understanding there. And any species is able to talk with the other species. A tree is not able to talk to a squirrel, but anyway, they can live in balance and they can live in this harmony, right? So we don't need to say, okay, I don't speak the same language that the other animal. It doesn't matter, because just being there, we can have this interaction, and then we can live in this harmony if we understand that we are part of the whole relationships and communication and connection that exists in the natural world. So just being in that understanding that there is this, I don't know, it's these connections of nature, you can be part of that. But for that, I think we need to return to that point of being there and connecting with it. That's why I think it's the way maybe for moving and facing this challenge, that we can face it in very complicated ways, but I think doing it in an easy way, it's better than in the other way. Yeah.
Yes, and I love the way you're doing all sorts of things in your everyday life, like you said, to simplify, to get rid of chemicals and packaging and, reliance on meat and that sort of thing. And I think that living by example is very powerful. And also you then create graphics or artworks or whatever it is to put that out in the world. And so, for example, you made an infographic about all the bulk stores that you found around Munich, and I thought that was a really great way to just say, like, to help, to share that information with others, but also say a little, it sort of puts out the message, like, have you considered buying your lentils in bulk, or have you considered this as something that could be a little step towards sustainability or living more gently? And I think it's a powerful thing, just gently living your life and sharing that in a way without pushing or trying to change someone, but just being an example is really powerful.
Yeah. I think that's also an important point, that you living by example, but also not pushing people, that you said before, because I feel that's also like you can create like the opposite effect when you are trying to push someone, like no, that's wrong. For example, I'm vegan, but I also understand if someone is, I'm perfectly fine if someone is eating not vegan with me, and I know that some people it's not like accepting it, and I think I'm not going to start like a discussion or something where everything is fine. Maybe at some point you will have a reflection, and then you change, or maybe you are not doing in food, but you're trying to do something different in another area, and that's fine. Everyone is taking the decisions they have. I'm just saying what I do, and maybe if you think it's interesting, maybe you can also do it, but just pushing to change sometimes it's not the best option. And it's also like related with the science that I was thinking now, because there are some studies that said that sometimes there is a sign saying don't do this, and they try to an action saying don't do this. But what happens, like in the minds of people, is that when you say no to something, then people want to do it.
Yes, my child does this every day.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's interesting. Yeah, so it involves human psychology as well as, just the colors and the patterns and the forms of things that we respond to. Also, it involves this sometimes recalcitrance or whatever we have, this resistance to being told what to do.
Yeah.
And so
good idea to do that.
So going back to living your life, like shopping simply or shopping secondhand or being vegan, just even your friends or colleagues seeing you do that can start a conversation, and having these conversations is important without pushing. Just an opening of the dialogue is important, I think, and I think you're doing that beautifully.
And some people, sometimes they ask me, so you buy this and you do this, and then trying to know more, because I feel that sometimes it's like the same when you talk about curiosity, that some people it's curious about things, But when I try to share like something I do, I try not to like say, yeah, and I do this and you should do this too.
Yeah.
It's more like, yes, I do this because I feel this and I think it's better for this reason, and etc. And then people start like asking more when you're just sharing your story, like not saying them what to do or not to do, because they want to know more. Yeah, maybe I could try, or maybe I could check this. Or can you give me like a tip or something? So I think just having the conversation, but from your story, then connects better with others at the end.
Yeah, I love that. So it's got me thinking about how to engage people in this journey of walking lightly and making choices that support the earth. And I was thinking about the concept of beauty and how I'm interested in your sense of the importance of beauty in this journey and the role that beauty plays in our lives and our acceptance of this idea of walking lightly. And so I guess I'm thinking of beauty in nature and how we experience and connect with nature, the natural world, and how important beauty is when we're out there, and also beauty in art and just showing people nature, offering up in the form of art something beautiful, something surprising, something that touches us in that way. What do you feel when I say that about beauty?
I think it's also something that has been changing kind of because I feel like the way you connect with nature, for me at least, it has been changing. Like I think before I was always like interested in going in nature, etc. But I was seeing nature like in general. Okay, it's a nice landscape, everything, etc. And then in the last years, I have been more trying to connect with the details of nature. And I also started like doing some natural journaling in nature and painting there and seeing things. And then when you start realizing like the small things that are around you, and you stop, like I just, when you sit in a place and you see what's around you for hours, then you start seeing so many things.
Yes.
And that's beauty, I think, for me. Like you can say it's a beautiful landscape when I see like any beautiful place, but usually we see beauty like in the common, I would say, beautiful landscape that we know, this place is super beautiful, and then I go this place and it's super nice to see it. But then when you're in any common typical forest, you just see this is a forest. But then when you start changing that perception and going to any space that it's nature and seeing everything, you start seeing like beauty is not necessarily something like, oh, this is awesome
a dramatic
place.
landscape.
Also,
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. Also, a small ant that is carrying his things going back and etc. Then you start seeing like it's beauty. There is beauty in everything. And then it's when I started also, for example, going hiking. Like at some point at the beginning, it's okay. You go hiking, you want to go to the top, and then you see the nice landscape from the top. But then the process of going there, just also start like seeing the small thing, like the small insect there, like, and then you always stop to see everything. Oh, there's this insect here. Also, like bought a camera like 1 year ago, something like that. And I love like, oh, there's a fungi there, a mushroom there, like the small insect there. So you start like seeing the small things that you see in the process of going there. At the end, going there and reaching the top, it's not the goal at all now. Because there is beauty in all of these small things that you see, and the color. Sometimes they have a very special insect with a color that you haven't seen in any other insect. Or I also like a lot of mushrooms, and I see every mushroom is so different from each other. And you see, for example, these mushrooms that are, I don't know the name, but it's in the other side. So they have water in the top. And do you see like water in the top of the mushroom, like because it's like a cup.
It's like a cup, yeah.
Yes, and it's so nice to see the water there, and maybe sometimes there is like a very, very small leaf floating there. So these very small things that you don't see normally, you start seeing when you are like having more attention to the details. And for me, that's all beautiful. And when I'm just like in the process of doing it, but I also think that when you are drawing and or illustrating, sometimes I can also think, okay, drawing, I don't know, there's an animals that everyone thinks they are super beautiful, and they are beautiful, of course. But there are some animals that no one sees too much, but they are also super beautiful,
Yes.
and maybe they are
Yes.
even the common ones. But if you start seeing the details, it's so different than when you see like just seeing like any animal. Like, it doesn't matter which one. So all for me
Yes.
have equally place in my life and in my drawings eventually. Yeah.
Yes, and one of the things I loved that you have illustrated is very intricate, amazing shaped microorganisms that now I can't remember the name of them, but they
Radiolaria.
yes. Tell me about this.
That was very interesting because I had no idea about them. But then, for different reasons, I moved to another house, and the house is with furniture here, so there are things already in the house. So I was just seeing the house around, and there is a book, and I saw the book, and it's a huge book, and I forgot the name of the person, but it's a biologist, like from Darwin and that area. That they were in that time, many biologists they were also painting because it was the only way to record them, right? And he was very interested in marine animals. So he has a lot of drawings about jellyfish and fishes and different things, and the radiolaria, because he was able to see these very, very small organisms that are in the water that no one sees, because you need to see very much in detail. You can see with your eye. And then I started seeing that this illustration, I was, and it was super funny because it's not like a common topic, and it was in the house here, the book. I was like, it's so related with what I'm doing, like very randomly.
Yes.
There's a book about the topic. And then I started researching about the radiolaria, and I found, wow, these amazing shapes and things that are so invisible to us, but they are there. And if you go to the beach and you go to the sea, probably you're going to be full of them around you, but you can see them. And they're so beautiful, no? They're so small. There is beauty in everything.
I love that. What a beautiful example of what we were just talking about. And so again, on this topic of what engages people, what gets people motivated, what helps this idea sink into people in a way that translates into pro-environmental behavior. And I'm thinking now of a game you created, and I'm thinking about how making something into a game, making learning into a game, making these ideas into a game can help make it fun, make it engaging, make it something that people learn through play without having to be having anything heavy. And I'd love for you to talk about this game you created.
Yeah, because I was participating in the last years in an urban garden project in the university. And because I always was doing workshops in my past life there, and here at some point I also wanted to learn about gardening and everything here, but at the end I finished also doing workshops because I think I always finished doing workshops because I really like that. So I was doing workshops in this project. And at some point we had to do this we wanted to do a workshop about urban gardening, like introduction to urban gardening. And I said, okay, I'm going to prepare the workshop, and I started thinking like activities for doing there, and with a couple of people. So we were having a team and thinking like how we can teach urban gardening in a fun way, not necessarily like explaining it. So we came up with different ideas, and we started like thinking in more like games for doing it. So it's a better way of learning. I think it's more like the experiential learning. So if you have like an experience, or first if you ask people to see what's their knowledge they have, and then you give the information, then it's easy for you to retain the information. And doing through a game, sometimes it's nicer because you're just playing, and then you're putting your knowledge there. You're interacting with others because you're also sharing with someone, what's your knowledge about this, etc. And then we check this, etc. So we came up with this idea of having a game in which people can learn about different vegetables and things they can plant. And one of the things I really like in general is interactions about species in general. I really like all about it. And in gardening, I learned about all of these plants that they like to grow together. They're like companion plants. There are some plants that prefer to be with the other, and they grow better. So I started like checking about it, like how it's this. And then little by little, when doing this, I started creating a table with all the veggies that like to live, to grow with yours. And I created like a huge table with, no, this plant is not working with this one, and this is working with this one, etc. So then the game started like taking this shape of having different cards with different veggies, and then basically people first, we gave all of them to the people, and then they have to say which ones they believe they can grow together. So they put all in groups, and they say why. I think this grows good with this one because of this, and we give some information in the card, so it says more or less like sun they requires, etc. And then we can give them the table so they can check which ones are working or not, and then they can have some points and say, okay, these are working together, this not, and then we have a reflection on that. And it's a game that you cannot do in a workshop, but also you can do in a very short activity. So I remember like last year we had like a fair with different initiatives or projects, and we had the card game there. So people were like, just, you can choose maybe 2 ones, and then we were just talking about it's very, you can do it easy way or more long way. And the thing is that when doing this game, I also always had the idea of painting fruits or vegetables and things, but I never did it. So I thought this is a good opportunity for doing it. So I thought I'm going to paint them. So I started painting. I think there are 30 different vegetables and herbs. And it was super interesting too, because when I was, there's some that, you know, like the tomato, the paprika, but there are some herbs that are very similar to each other. So for example, I know the coriander and but I know that some of them that are similar, like the shape of the leaf. So when doing it, I also started learning what's the shape of each herb, right? Like understanding how when I was trying to draw it, it has to be like similar to how it looks like. So I painted them in watercolor. And then I created the game card and for the project. So they are using it now for the workshops they are doing. But it was a very nice experience. Also thinking in a way of how people can learn about gardening, and I think it's a fun way of doing it. And I think also, like, I know games are a way of doing things. So I have been thinking, although I don't have any project now, but I would like to think more ways of creating these things, as it's not necessarily like a painting, but also ways of more interaction through visual things. For example, this game.
Yeah, I think that's fabulous. I think that things that are engaging, things where you're learning without trying to learn are really effective.
And the interesting thing is when you are doing it, you're also learning yourself, right? Because of doing the card, I also wanted to write some things about the plant, and I had no idea. So researching about it, then you start like learning. So anything you do at the end, you're also learning new things that you didn't know before. So I also like it a lot.
Absolutely. And on that topic, I've seen posts where you're using sketchnoting to sort of put an idea or something you're learning into a way that maybe you and someone else can understand. I'd love for you to talk about sketchnoting as a tool for learning as well. I guess it's along the similar lines, but I'd love for you to talk about, using sketchnoting for learning.
So the thing is that I because I was doing workshops in Chile, one day there was one person that we were doing the workshop and we were talking about something, and then the person was doing these drawings and she was doing the graphic facilitation, like taking everything and a summary. And I was just seeing, like, it was amazing.
What's she doing?
What's she doing? Like, she was putting everything, and then we finished the workshop and she said, okay, we have everything here. So we talk about this, and she had some drawings there, and I was, this is amazing. I really want to know more, and I want to learn this. So I took a course about graphic facilitation. It was just one very short course, but I started understanding, you can also do some very simple things, right? Like you can represent anything in 2 lines, and it's a way to communicate something, but also capturing like the main ideas and creating all of that. So I learned some things in that course, and that stayed in my mind, but I didn't continue after that. But when I was thinking, how can I start like communicating things? the first things I was doing was through this, doodles and everything, because I thought maybe it's a good way for synthesize a lot of information and creating something like this. And when I started my master, I also thought maybe a good way for me also to learn and to have the information for the future is also creating this, doing some sketch notes. It's nicer than just writing something in a computer or whatever. So I also tried to create some sketch notes, and I really think that I can remember easily the things that I created in that way than things that I just wrote. For example, also I had a course of about forests, and so where we were learning about different trees, and I did the exercise of doing one sketch note with one tree, with a spruce, and then it was the tree where I put more attention in creating how it's a shape and how are the needles and how is everything. And I went doing the sketch note, and I think I can talk about the spruce now because to my mind it came like the infographic with information. But if I have to talk to another tree, it's not going to be that easy because I don't remember all the information. So it's also a good tool for myself when creating it. And it doesn't matter how it looks, right? It's just something visual that then I remember for the future. And eventually maybe it can be useful for someone else, because if someone wants to learn about something, it can be a way too. But I really think that the sketch notes are an interesting way of everything, like for workshops, for synthesizing information, I'm learning and everything, because you can learn so much from that and then retain the information for longer time.
Yeah, and again, I think it's the power of combining words, pictures, and numbers. And I guess we do that with sketch notes, but we also definitely do that with a nature journal. And also in the interpretive signs that you're creating, you bring together all of these different layers, and there's something powerful in that coming together of these three ways of communicating, I think.
Absolutely, yeah, I also think the same. And because also, that we are visual, people are visual. It's easier for us to see and understand or recognize things by seeing something than reading something.
Yes.
So the first thing that are going to come to your mind, it's the picture, whatever you are seeing, like a visualization of something. And then you are going to read, and eventually you are going to connect with that image. So for that reason, I think it's much more effective when you have, for example, a sign with a picture that it's the first thing you're going to see. You are going to remember that. And then the text has to be like in a combination with it, like supporting the text. But it's not like the visual supporting the text. It's more like the text supporting the visual. And I think it's how we work at the end, how our brains work. It's easier for us in that way.
Yeah. Tell me more about hiking. You mentioned it before, but it seems to be a very important way for you to connect with and to be part of and be inspired by nature.
So when I was in Chile, for example, I wasn't hiking too much. Also because of work, I was like working all the time. So we had like 2-3 weeks for holidays. So during that time, I was going to some place, natural place to be. But then being here, everything was different because also I had more time. And also I'm now in Munich, and Munich is close to the Alps. So there's much more access to nature. So being here, it's here in Germany, you have these urban forests that you can find like everywhere. And I just walk 10 minutes and I can find like a mini forest or something. And
oh wow, so like a forest within the city?
Yeah, there are many of them. And there's, for example, there's a palace, and the palace has like a forest, and a huge forest. And it's close to my house. It's like, 15 minutes or something like that. You can see deers, and you can see different animals and birds and everything. So it's so close to you, and you can find nature just here. So I was here more connected physically to nature because it was close to me. But at some point, I remember because I wasn't very sure to go hiking. It was a new country. I'm not sure taking how I go there. I need to take a train, how I do it. And then at some point I went once, and I felt so nice. You have in 1-2 hours, I'm there, and you can go to a mountain and experience it. And I feel that I don't know, I started obsessing with it. And I thought I really want to go again.
Yeah.
And every time I'm going there, I think I want to live here. I would like to live in the forest. I like being all the time around it.
So sweet.
I started like going every time more, and here there are different like hills or mountains that you can go, and there are so many, and I'm thinking like, I would like to go to all of them. And I basically started like hiking a lot, and I think last summer I was going every week. And now it's a bit more difficult because it's winter, but I try to go like around here, because there are also many places in Munich or close to Munich that you can go and hike and walk. And also I did at the start of the year, I did a hike from Portugal to Spain, walking, and that was also super nice, because I really think that when you go walking, you can discover much more than just going by any other like a bus or train or whatever.
Yes.
You connect with the place. You can, and you can just stay where you want, and you can continue. There is no plan. You just walk and go around and see the things that are there. And usually, like in the way of going to one place to another, is where you can be more in contact with nature and see things around. So after that hike, and working in 2 different countries, like long, because it was like 300 kilometers working. I thought that's the way I want to do things, like when I'm traveling. I really don't like to go to one place and stay there and be around in a city. I really prefer to go to a rural area and just walk around and discover new places and people and things. And I really, really like that. Yeah.
Do you ever take your sketchbook when you're hiking, or is it too complicated to stop and sketch along the trail?
Yeah. I think sometimes I have my sketchbook but for example, if I'm going around here and walking, then I'm having my sketch note for taking some notes and some drawings. Mm-hmm. I think I'm doing it more and more now, because I started at the last year, and then I remember the first time I went to do it, and I was the whole day, and it was super interesting for me, because usually for example, I like eating from time to time. Like after 2 hours, I'm hungry. I need to eat something.
I'm the same. Yeah.
I remember I went to a place and I was alone there. And then I don't know, I didn't see the time. I was just sitting there and just drawing and everything. And then I realized it had been like 6, 7 hours,
Wow.
like 6 hours, because I was very early in the morning. I haven't eaten anything. I'm not hungry. And that was super surprising for me, because just staying there, you lost like the feeling of the time. Because it's like the time it's going in a different way. I don't know what's happening, but something happens, no? Yeah, and I
absolutely.
also like it's very. And I remember that time. That's when I realized that how things are different when just, for example, if I go to a lake and just see the lake, I just see one time the lake, right? And I started trying to paint the lake, and it was very early in the morning. I remember like seeing the trees, and I was painting the trees, and then after some time the colors changed. And okay, so I need to put more yellow here because it's not the same color than what I was before. And then after some time, there was a reflection in the lake, and I didn't do the reflection. Then I need to do the reflection, and I started adding things but now it's darker than before. So what I do now, then I thought maybe we would have been nicer to do different ones, the same one, because you don't realize it when you are only once. But if you are long time, you start seeing like the changes there, and that's so nice. So sometimes when I hike, I also like to go to a place and decide that I'm going to stop there, because then it's when you can see all of these things. If you are just walking, sometimes you can't. So it's good to combine, sometimes staying, sometimes walking and everything.
I love that. Sometimes, I talk and think a lot about tracking in my nature journal changes over time, but I hadn't really thought about that. If you just sit in this, I'm thinking more like days or weeks, but if you just sit in one place, you're going to see all the shadows change and the colors and the reflections. I love that you could watch the changes in a small number of hours. That's a beautiful story.
Yeah, at the end, I don't know if it was very nice. It was full of painting colors, because I was
over the top.
That's what I thought. Yeah, maybe it's better to do different ones, but it's really nice.
That's so wonderful. And so to finish off, tell me how you feel or what you hope is the next step, or something that or things you hope to bring to life through your art and your work in the future.
So I am, for one side, I'm trying to learn more about techniques, because that's one thing that I really like to experiment different things. I'm not like staying with one option. So I'm learning like digital illustration, but also different media, different ways of doing it. Like I'm not close to anything that I could do in the future in terms of visualizations. So I'm trying to learn more about that, because I think for the same reason that I want to learn what's more attractive for people, I think that different ways for showing different things and different techniques are useful for different purposes. So I would like to experiment more in that. And because now I'm going to finish my master's soon, because when I finish my thesis, I will be ready. I would like to work more like a freelance. So I'll take that option, because I would like to go to different projects and see different things. And I would love to try helping people or organizations or whatever on maybe translating some knowledge that exists in science, because I know a bit more about science now. So how to translate that knowledge in a way that it's more accessible to people. And I think like the visual means is a way for connecting these two worlds. And
Absolutely.
if I can help in that way, which could be in different to painting, or maybe through doing some graphics, or helping in this translation of from one direction to another. So that's more or less what I want to try, and I will be checking like what are like the different options or areas in which I can go. Probably like in parks, it's one option also, because of I will be doing like this science. I think it's a way of communicating and being close to people through this media, but probably there are many other ways of doing it. So I'm in this exploration and finding new paths and new directions that I could take.
Fantastic. It's been such a joy to chat with you and to learn about your story. I think you're doing amazing things, and I love that everything you do is motivated by this desire to help the world and help people connect and to lead lives that are gentle on the earth. So congratulations on all that you are doing, and thank you so much for joining me for the podcast.
Thank you very much. It was really, really nice to talk to you.
I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Valentina. Her story about the encounter with the fox reminded me of a book called Our Wild Calling by Richard Louv. The book is all about how intertwined we are with other animals, and how animal encounters can be deeply connective and heart-focused experiences that form the basis for healing the environmental crisis we've created. I'll put a link to this book in the show notes if you're interested in finding out more about that. I really loved so many things about my conversation with Valentina, especially the focus she has on making positive change with her visual work. I know for me that visual messages can be a really impactful way to receive information, and I think Valentina is doing amazing work with her thesis, drilling down into exactly the kinds of fine details that make people notice and pay attention to signs and environmental messaging. So please go to the show notes of this episode, where you'll find Valentina's website and social media links. Thank you so much for listening. See you next week.